Guys, let me show you what I got cooking. So there's a new EX30 main board, and this is it. And you'll know you have the new EX30 board when it has 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 capacitors on it, and it has plugs for an upper deck board. There's also the wire, the plug for the old upper deck wire, but it has plugs on the side for the upper deck board. And here's the new upper deck board right here, and you can see the plugs, and there's a bunch of sawdust all over it because what I just did was I used this grinder right here, and I cut a chunk off of the circuit board right from about here to about here, and you can see there's a little copper exposed. I'm going to file that copper down, and I'm going to use some conformal coating that I have here so that nothing can touch that copper. And what I plan to do, because this new upper deck is taller than the old one, and you could see the display is only a 1/4 inch tall. It's a lot shorter than the old one was. So what I'm planning to do is put the old voltage monitor from my old EX30 display board right in there. You see, I've almost got it. I just need to file it a little tiny bit more with the grinder here, and then I'll have my voltage display board back. I might even go with that. Let me see. Let's see my seat. So that looks like it would probably even work right there. I probably just glue it. Instead of just grinding more and more, what I'll do is just glue it right there and see if it works. And you can see what I'm trying to do is I'm achieving a ultra low height so that this can still go in the EX30 main board. And then I gotta glue it together and put it back in there. And I've powered it up on the board and I've tested it. The only wire I need to tap into is the overall voltage right there. So I'm trying to get to my my old voltage monitor board back in to the new EX30 board, which is requires some grinding. I'm gonna see if it works. Wish me luck. I might fry everything. We'll see what happens. Bye. Alright guys, so I got that cleaned up a little bit. Now I'm going to apply some conformal coating. Because the ground plane to the board was exposed, and I don't want that touching any of the wires. We'll have a bad day with our exposed ground plane. So let's go ahead and cover that ground plane back up so it's not exposed. And I'm going to do both sides just in case. I went ahead and checked for metal flex. No metal. I pulled in this tape. I made sure there's no metal. And what I'm doing here, just sealing off the ground plane so it can't get touched by anything. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna test this board for a couple days to make sure it's really good before I go ahead and put the voltage monitor in. So I'm doing like a little double check, you know, just to make sure that it's good. So now what I gotta do is clean off all the little black rubbery stuff, and then I'm gonna put it back in my wheel and ride it around for a couple nights, and as long as it works I'll pull it back out again, and then I'll go ahead and put this guy in. And I have siliconed the crap out of this thing, so, and I've already adjusted it. I adjusted the little potentiometer on there to get it calibrated and everything. So all I got to do now that there's a slot for it is glue it back in, and then this wire goes to the black connector down there next to the red connector. That's for power. And I haven't figured out where I'm going to put the connector for this one yet. I just need to tap into the main voltage line off of the all 4 combined batteries so that I could see what 4 combined batteries are doing. So I have a soldering iron. I'll probably solder that onto my main board so that it's good and secure and there's not more wires flopping around. But I'm going to run this for a couple days and make sure that works. I'm going to throw it back in here. I'm going to go do a few DoorDash deliveries tonight with my stepson and make sure everything's good, and then in a couple days we'll go ahead and throw the voltage monitor in. So I'll see y'all later. Okay, once you get your board back in place and you got the slot drilled big enough for your voltage display board, you have to take a Q-tip or something and you dab some of this black goop here, 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 here on these connectors on the upper board so the upper board doesn't pop up. And then go test your upper board for a couple days without the voltage monitor first. And make sure none of these wires can touch any of that ground. Seal off the ground and make sure none of those wires are gonna be bouncing around on it. So then you can go test it for a few days. So here, let's plug it in. It looks like that was live. That was I just booted it up live for you guys. That's the first time I've booted it up since I ground down the chunk out of there. And it looks like, here, let's see if it still self-balances. Yeah, it's still self-balancing. So I'm gonna go ahead and glue, I'm gonna use the black goop on the board. And then once I do that, I'm gonna test it for a couple days to make sure it works, and then we can put our voltage monitor back in. So that's the new EX30 board with the old voltage monitor setup. See y'all later. Okay, people, here's the deal. I went out and delivered food yesterday, and my EX30 is running good as usual. And that's after I did the cutout on the board. So I ran it without the gasket just for one night. And that was just so that I can test that the cutout on the board for the voltage monitor is okay. So what I can do now is I can pull it out, take my glue off of the corners, and pull the board out, and then I have to hot glue my voltage monitor board in there. And then plug it into here for power, and then I gotta find a place to tap it for the overall voltage because they removed a header. There was a header here for the old voltage monitor plug, and they removed that. That's not there anymore, so I gotta find a place to tap it now. So I'm gonna do that right now. So my board dremeling and modifications and sealing worked. Now I'm gonna go ahead and do the install of the voltage monitor. And this may require some soldering to solder a wire somewhere or a connector somewhere. So then you can see I have that connector sitting here. I'm gonna solder that connector in, and then we're gonna seal it all up and everything, and we're gonna test it again, make sure it works. Testing my life and my wheels for you guys. All right, see you later. Peace. Batteries, and I pressed the button to drain the capacitors. So I noticed this red line is going right over to that capacitor, and I think I'm gonna solder that connector right onto that capacitor right there, so that I can get my wire plugged in to the right port there, the main voltage line coming into the board. So I'm gonna go ahead and solder this cap on that connector, and then I'm gonna put a bunch of black goo all around it so it can't break free. See you guys in a bit. Can't see this because it's really small, but I soldered a little pin in here off of that capacitor, a little tiny pin, and I have to insulate that pin with more conformal coating. And then what I can do is my gauge plugs into power over here, and then the gauge is going to plug into the voltage line, voltage sensory line here, so it'll be able to tell how much voltage it's using. So, and it seats pretty firmly too, so I have to go ahead and isolate everything with more of the conformal coating so that nothing can touch. And I gotta glue now this voltage meter in my board here. So I'm gonna go ahead and glue the voltage meter in the board, and I'm gonna insulate everything else, and then I'll be back. Alright, there it is, guys. It's mounted. I just used some hot glue on the front and the back side, and it's kind of sandwiched between the thermal PCB also, so shouldn't go anywhere. My cables are directed toward where they need to be, and that should be all set up. So now I have some conformal coating that I just put on the pin that I soldered down in there. So if for some reason the pin should move, there's nothing that it can hit. It's all conformal coated. So now all I need to do is plug it all back together, and then I need to install the friendly black goop on all the connections here as usual, like this stuff. so that it stays together, and it should be good to go. We'll go check it out. If you guys need a soldering iron, I'd suggest the Hakko FX888D. I've had this one for years and years, and it works fine. And you can get some Kester, no clean solder, and you should be good to go. You probably, if this is your first time soldering, you don't want to learn on your Begode wheel. These boards are 500 bucks. Practice on something else. All right, peace. After you get your black goob on and you go to reassemble this, make sure you have a little cutout for your voltage monitor display so that it will show through. I gotta go ahead and get my black goob on now, but I just figured I'd remind you guys about the cutout. Charged. And the voltage meter is only a point or two off. That's pretty good. I had it dead nuts before, but I remember when I fully charged it, it was at about 134 volts before, so that's about what it was at before. I think it's right. It's pretty dang close. I calibrated it to the app before, but there we go. There's the old voltage monitor on the new EX30 board. I'm going to put this puppy back together, so I'll be back in a bit. I'll test on the voltage monitor board, so let's go. There you go, you can see it. All back in place. It's obviously working because I start moving around and there goes the voltage, so good. My voltage monitor mod works on the new EX30 board. There you go, guys. See you later.